So yesterday I made a video about gender roles and how they could be transferring over, like it can be coming more to the center where everyone's more equal, and how it's also possible that advantages in gender roles could possibly switch, in that there are areas where it can be beneficial to be a woman over being a man, whether it's in social instances or legality matters. It's possible that you could benefit from being on one side from the other. The interesting thing, though, whenever I talk about gender inequality and the problems that happen, is the side that people tend to take, and that's a very weird way to put it, but there are issues for women and there are issues for men. And the side that people normally take is the same gender as themselves. For example, if they're a woman, they're going to be talking about how women are oppressed in society. And if they're a man, they tend to talk about problems that men face in society. And I just find that very interesting because it's very obvious. I think that people try and hide it to one degree or another, but it always seems to come out. Like, if someone takes a side on anything, it's how it relates to their personal lives. And at first I wanted to say that that's a bad thing because it's selfish on your part. You should be caring about the problems that other people have. I mean, we all have social expectations. We have these gender roles that we've constructed. We have ideas about how people should live based on their gender. And we have expectations about how they're going to act in the future, and we can use that to hold prejudices against them. But those obviously don't always uphold. People can act however they want to in their lives, and however they feel it's appropriate for them. They can act however they personally feel is good for them to act, as long as they aren't hurting anybody. The fact that people always tend to take the side that benefits them, though, the more I thought about it, it's not necessarily selfish as just the topic that's within your life. It's within your realm of expertise, because it's the thing that you know best. If there is oppression against a group that you happen to fall into, and you are fighting for the rights of that group, then you are fighting for good. And some people might say, hey, why are you just fighting for that one group? Why don't you fight for every group? And obviously that's ideally the good thing. Like, in terms of gender roles, I believe that they should be effectively removed from society. I believe that we should be viewing people by their individual personalities and not make assumptions on them based on their gender. But it is very possible that the best way to handle that is for people to just focus on the problems of their own group. Because there's just so many groups out there in the world. There are so many angles that you can look at life from. There are so many issues that go on. Like, I remember I made a video about 9/11 when that happened, and people still being very upset and depressed and emotionally unstable because of 9/11, even though that was 11 years ago. And I'm talking about how there are so many different problems in the world. Like, there's problems with starving to death, there's problems with disease, whether that's AIDS or malaria, or anything that we could probably fix if we put more money into it. There are cultural oppressions, like in the Middle East, many women are still extremely oppressed. There's problems with pollution. There's a million things. There's a million things that you can focus on. And if you really honestly, with your whole heart, cared about every single one of those, you would probably commit suicide, because it would just be too much for you to take, and you wouldn't be able to ignore all of these problems. As a human being, we can only do so much. There are so many problems out there, and the fact that we only care about things that are within our social scope makes sense. It's like how so many Americans are concerned about how high our unemployment rate is, whereas it's probably several times larger in several countries in Africa, because things are just falling apart there. So why don't we care about that? It's because it's not something within our life. I do think that there's two things that we need to consider, though. One, we shouldn't expect everybody else to necessarily care about improving the situation of our group. If we are going to cling to a group that we belong to, it's reasonable that people of another group can cling to that. For example, if you are a man or a woman and you're concerned about the rights of your group, then that's fine, but you should also expect that other people are going to be more concerned about the rights of their particular group. And second, we should realize that if a group is in a position where they absolutely cannot help themselves at all, like they have no ability to advocate for reform or a better life for themselves, then you should be able to stand up for them. For example, if it's starvation in Africa, or the malaria or AIDS epidemic, or something like that, that they can't reasonably take care of themselves, they're in such a weak position, then I do think it's good to at least put minimal effort into helping them, because they're in a situation where they cannot help themselves. But beyond that, if you specialize in an area or an issue in the world that just happens to be related to you, I think that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable, and I wonder what other people think, because I know that's kind of controversial. Like, you shouldn't just care about yourself, you should be caring about the problems with others. But as long as you're not advocating against the problems of others, I think it's fine. I think it works out. And that's my conclusion. But what do you think? What is your opinion on that?